Imposter Syndrome's Ugly Roots by Alexander Besant, editor at LinkedIn News. Imposter syndrome, a term coined for that feeling of inadequacy despite one's accomplishments. Okay, interesting. Well, I'm good so far. Often focuses too much on the individual rather than the cultural or societal problems that cause it, argues a report in Harvard Business Review. This is why I began to have problems with this. Okay, because it said too often focuses on the individual rather than the cultural or societal problems that cause it, argues a report in Harvard Business Review. Particularly for, here it comes, drum roll. Why do we have to pull this out of the box, Will? Why does this have to be there? Particularly for women and minorities. As if to say, the average Caucasian person doesn't have imposter syndrome, which is why I wanted to get you on the record early, because I'm sitting there going, well, it has nothing to do. So, and they, I don't know, Alexander here just really torquing me off. Imposter syndrome could be, don't you love those qualifiers? Could be the result of systemic bias. So, life is bias. Everything's, well, anyway, systemic bias and a history that requires change.
Wait there, Victor. You were just about to rant about something, and then you held yourself back. I think you should continue the rant.
Well, here's what pisses me off lately. This is what's really getting to me lately, is that I'm tired of the systemic bias. What he doesn't want to say is systemic racism or sexism. That's what he wants to say. And that's what pisses me off, because it's like, come on. Are you kidding me? Everybody suffers from imposter syndrome at one time or another. Has nothing to do with gender, race, or any of the above. We all feel a sense, that's why I love the first part, feeling of inadequacy despite one's accomplishments. That's called insecurity and being unsure of yourself. It has nothing to do with a systemic bias in society. Anyway, that's what's pissing me off. Now it's my coffee. And then this is the part that, indeed, the author argues that white men's career progression is imbued with validation and role models. Like, if you see what I mean? He's trying to make, whereas women and minorities constantly face questions of their competency no matter their seniority. Do you know that the second richest man, if not the first richest man in the U.S., or I guess in the world, is Carlos Slim? He's Mexican. He's a minority. This is what pisses, you know what I mean? I'm tired of this narrative about we don't have any role models to look up to. Shut the hell up. We have role models. They're all over the place. This is such a red herring article. It really bothers me, because do we have imposter syndrome? Of course we do. Can we get past this? But it's only, with women and minorities. Well, give it a few centuries here. White people are going to be minorities. Will we say? I mean, by the way, if we can zoom back a little bit, can I just get historical here? If we zoom back, even if you look at the word white, what does that mean? I don't know about you, but I did my 23andMe. And I think I told you, Will, I got everything in me, including Irish. Do you know what I mean? Which I'm very proud of, 1.2%, but it's mine. And so, anyway, that's what bothers me about this article. He took a phrase that I think means you're insecure despite your own accomplishments, which we all have that anxiety and feeling. And now he's trying to make it a racist, sexist issue. And that bothers me.
I did 23andMe as well, Victor. And do you know what I found? I'm the whitest person of all time ever. It's like 20% Irish, 80% English. That was about my mix-up. A little bit of French in there as well.
My wife came back 99.9% European.
Yeah.
Bam. All everything underneath that. But anyway, so to finish it off, the author argues that white men's career progression is imbued with validation and role models. Have you been to the backwoods of Georgia here? Not a lot of role models who are white. Okay. Whereas women and minorities constantly face questions of their competency, constantly face questions of and matter of seniority. Apparently I'm oppressed, and this guy's telling me that I'm constantly facing questions, and I'm questioning myself. Alexander, I would delete you if I could. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Will. Go ahead.
Have you read the book? Now, I've talked about it on a live stream that I do on Fridays. I've talked about it on other shows recently because I'm reading it. I'm engrossed in it. Have you read the book Psycho-Cybernetics?
Yes, Maxwell Maltz.
Yep. So I'm going to push back on you slightly here, Victor. So for the audience who hasn't read the book, highly recommend it. I won't put words in Victor's mouth. Do you recommend it? Do you think it's a good book?
I think it's a good book. I mean, I read it years ago,
Okay.
but I remember reading it and enjoying the book.
Okay, so recommended, highly recommended from me, recommended from Victor.
Yep.
It talks about the guy who wrote the book. We won't go too into detail. Was a plastic surgeon, and he came across this phenomenon where someone would come in, they'd have self-conscious issues, maybe they'd have imposter syndrome. They should be they feel like they should be X, Y, Z, but their nose is bent. They've got big ears. They want a big rack on them, whatever it is. He would do the surgery, and then they wouldn't change. And then they'd want more surgery and they wouldn't change. And the issues that the individuals had was with their actual self-image, as opposed to what they thought was the world looking in at them, like physically. So what he then started doing was doing less surgery and less surgery and less surgery until he basically became a psychiatrist, working on people's self-image and improving that so that people were happy with themselves as opposed to, and it sounds all hippy-dippy, but it isn't. I'll come to why in a second.
No, it's a great book. Great book.
And so it's all not like, oh, love yourself. It talks about this idea of imposter syndrome. And this is why when you ask me the question if I suffer from it, I'm probably suffering from it right now because I'm setting my goals for the next 5 years as we speak. I don't feel like I'm the person who is the individual that reaches those goals. So when I see people with imposter syndrome, they may be well on the way to the goals, but their self-image is of an individual who isn't quite there yet. So you need to change your self-image. Now, coming back to this post that was on LinkedIn News, I don't think it's unfair to say, I appreciate and I hear what you're saying about making something clickable, which is clearly what the author did here. But I also don't think it's unreasonable that if you grow up in an environment where, I'm from the middle of the UK, so I can't personally comment on some of this. But if you grow up in, the south side of Chicago, and you see your peers perhaps not doing great, and you see white blokes in the city doing great, that will affect your self-image. That's a story that you can, if you choose to tell yourself this, you can choose not to tell yourself this. You can choose to change your self-image over time. But if your self-image is, I'm stuck here, I'm stuck with these, these black gangs or whatever, and I'm stuck in this environment, and I can't get over there because I'm white. And then people around you are confirming this because they believe this story, this narrative as well, because they don't have someone. I know some of your history, Victor, and you've perhaps been through some of this. You chose to take a different path and chose to get out of the environment that you grew up in. If you don't have a mentor there, if you don't have a book, if you don't have a media, a narrative, then some of this could play true in that you told all these stories, your subconscious is drilled into your brain, your self-image is so wrapped up that I am this. And so it can be a barrier to people having success. And same with women, it's same with people of color, minorities, whatever it is. It could be me not being, it could be as daft as I'm 6'3". I can't become a professional basketball player because they're all 6'7". This self-image affects everything that you do. And I'm sure there's examples that disprove this rule. I'm sure there are plenty of basketball players in the NBA that are of a certain height because they're so talented that height becomes less relevant than what it would be otherwise. So my takeaway from what you're saying here, Victor, is there's some truth to this. This article was clearly spun to get clicks, but self-image does affect people's ability to have success in life.
This is so Muggsy Bogues and a couple other people were 5'7" and they played in the NBA, were successful, right? The problem with this article is that it keeps pushing a narrative. Now, is self-image, an issue? Of course it is. But true story, well, you'll like this story. So I'm in the hood, right? And if you saw a white person in our hood, you're like, where did that guy come from? Is he lost? What's he doing here, right? And so we were in a financially or economically disadvantaged neighborhood in Chicago. Now, one day, I go to the bus stop. I see a white guy with a suit. And the first thing that comes to mind is, I don't know what he does, but that's exactly what I want to do because I want to wear a suit. And so that was my small world where we, at that time, because I'm a little older than you, as you've pointed out many times, we only had 3 channels. There's so many examples of successful people then why is it that we have to keep coming back to this? Why does it matter if the role model I look at is white? Or, because see, on one hand, we always say we need to
It doesn't matter.
transcend
You're
race.
right. It doesn't matter. It's
Right.
I don't look at that. It's irrelevant.
Right.
I'm
They
not.
keep
I'm not
bringing us
fussed.
back to that. Yeah, they keep
But
bringing
some
us
people
back
are,
to that
Victor.
role.
Some people are, because of their programming. Some people are
This is
concerned
part
about
of the This is what I'm saying. This
Sure.
is part of the programming, because you know what, you got successful women, you got successful minority, and you got successful people of all colors, and there's examples everywhere. So for somebody to say, again, white men's career progression is imbued with validation and role models, almost like if we don't have role models, anybody else doesn't have role models. But why can't a person who's of a different color be a role model, right? I mean, why can't they? And so this narrative was, anyway, I think we beat this subject to death. I hate this narrative. I really hate, I believe in imposter syndrome because I also believe, like you, like Maxwell Maltz talks about, that there is this self-image. But that self-image is how you perceive yourself. But it has nothing to do with what he's saying, which is bringing it back to they have it better. I mean, white people have self-image problems too. It's not like they're immune to it. That's what kills me about this article. It's not like they're immune to it. So I'm tired of this narrative that look, I'm actually offended. By the way, listen here, white people, I'm actually offending you because everybody's saying you don't have problems. I'm thinking, you know that the poorest majority of the United States is white? I don't know if you knew that, Will. The poorest majority is white. So apparently they have not been imbued with valid role models.